Hello, everyone. I am Michael Vincent. What I bring to you today is a real case that happened in the UK, the perfect chess game murder case. The strange thing about this case is that there is some rationality from beginning to end, but after thinking about it carefully, it doesn't make sense. The same fact, but we can get two completely opposite results. The whole case is full of tricks, suspicious but unsolvable. Therefore, this case is called the most perfect murder in history and a genius murder. So, what exactly is this case about? Does the perfect murder really exist? Now, let's travel back to 1931 and review the details of the case. The story takes place in Liverpool in 1931, a famous port city in northwest England. If you like playing football, then you may be more familiar with Liverpool because there is a famous Premier League team here. At that time, it was very popular to play border chess in Britain, with chess clubs established in many places. Workers played chess, and the Liverpool Central Chess Club was one of the largest. The protagonist we are going to talk about today is William Herbert Wallace, a chess enthusiast who was also a formidable figure in the chess world. He won the 1927 and 1928 European Chess Championships. Wallace was born in Campland on August 29, 1878, and his family originally belonged to the nobility but later declined. Between 1907 and 1911, Wallace worked for the Liberal Party in Harrogate, England. There, he met and married his wife, Julia, who was 17 years older than him, in March 1914. After the outbreak of World War I, the Liberal Party's position was in jeopardy, and Wallace lost his job. He later worked as an insurance agent in Liverpool. Under normal circumstances, Wallace could have lived a peaceful life until something happened 15 years later that completely changed his life. The night of January 19, 1931, saw the match at the Liverpool Central Chess Club, which was planned as usual. It wasn't an international event, and contestants often missed games depending on their mood. Wallace had a game that night, but had not yet arrived. At 7:45 p.m., Wallace showed up. Just after sitting down with his opponent, McCartney, the club captain handed him a message that 25 minutes earlier, someone calling themselves Pa had made an appointment with Wallace for the next evening at 7:30 at number 25 Huayuan East Road to discuss purchasing insurance. Wallace didn't recognize the name, but, as an insurance agent, decided to go the next day. The next day, Wallace told his wife to pay more attention to safety when he left, and not to let strangers into their home. He took the tram to Manlawood Street at 7:30 p.m. However, when Wallace arrived, he discovered there was no Manlawood Garden East Road. After asking a few passers-by and the police, everyone confirmed that the place didn't exist. He thought it was a prank, so he decided to go home. At 8:45 p.m., Wallace returned home, took out his key to open the door, but found it wouldn't open. His neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Johnston, returned and suggested he try the back door, which opened. Once inside, Wallace discovered his wife, Julia, collapsed on the living room floor, having been struck hard on the head with a stick. Blood spattered even on the walls. Wallace immediately called the police, and 25 minutes later, they arrived and began investigating. There were no signs of forced entry, and the police suspected that someone familiar with the family might have committed the crime. After the investigation, Wallace was briefly eliminated as a suspect because of his perfect alibi. However, 2 weeks later, the police arrested Wallace, citing the phone call from the chess club as crucial evidence. This phone call, made at 7:20 p.m., asked whether Wallace had arrived yet, and the message about the next day's meeting was also left at the club. The police believed that Wallace himself had staged the phone call to create an alibi and then returned home to murder his wife. The investigation, however, was full of contradictions. Wallace's alibi, while seemingly airtight, was questioned. There was no conclusive evidence, and the case became a chess game of strategies and counter-strategies, much like the game Wallace loved. In the court, both sides presented their arguments fiercely. In the end, Wallace was found guilty of conspiracy and sentenced to death. But just a month later, the Court of Criminal Appeal in London heard Wallace's appeal and overturned the verdict due to insufficient evidence. This rare reversal left many people baffled, especially since no new evidence emerged. The case became even more intriguing when Wallace was acquitted in May 1931, but despite the legal outcome, public opinion remained divided. Wallace continued to face disdain from his neighbors and the media. His health deteriorated, and he eventually died from uremia a year later. The case remains unsolved, leaving behind a trail of theories and no clear answers. Although the court had acquitted Wallace, the mystery of his wife's death remains one of the most perfect unsolved crimes in history.